By the end of October 1942, the city on the Volga still has not fallen. The Führer announces to the German people, "We have taken Stalingrad. A few pockets of resistance remain. We will take them one by one. It is just a question of time." For Hitler, Stalingrad has come to represent his victory over Russia. In the north, Leningrad is surrounded by the Germans. It has been a year since the Germans entered this northern city. In the center, Moscow, the target city, remains just within reach for the Germans. In the south, the drive towards the Baku oil fields has come to a halt in the Caucasus Mountains. In Stalingrad, the Soviets are holding their ground. Contrary to Hitler's declarations, Soviet boats continue to cross the Volga, bringing over reinforcements. Every day, thousands of young Russian men, sometimes without any weapons or military training, are disembarked on the riverbanks. Those who back away from the German bullets are ruthlessly executed by the political commissars. On the 7th of November, the anniversary of the revolution, the beleaguered soldiers holding Stalingrad and the Soviet troops all along the front listen to their commander-in-chief, Stalin, make this astonishing declaration. "Tomorrow there will be celebrations in our streets." And indeed, General Zhukov, the man who saved Moscow, has a plan to keep those pockets of resistance fighting to the very end, in order to retain the German troops of General Paulus inside Stalingrad. On the other side of the Volga, Zhukov is secretly putting together an entire army. Hitler's goal is no longer Moscow, but southern Russia. He is planning a colossal pincer movement that will close up around the oil fields in the Caucasus, and with Rommel advancing through Egypt, those in the Middle East. His other goal is Stalingrad, Stalin's city and its factories. Hitler launches both offensives at the same time, which alarms his military commanders. As he did for Moscow the previous year, Hitler splits up his forces. A part of the Wehrmacht penetrates deep into the steppes. General von Kleist says, "In front of me, no enemies. Behind me, no reserves." They reach the Caucasus Mountains. They head for the Iranian border, which has recently become a supply route for American aid to the USSR. They will never reach it. In the meantime, the rest of the German forces, the 6th Army led by General Paulus, is marching towards Stalingrad. To try and stop the relentless advance of the German tanks, the Russians start using desperate means. Dogs. Up until now, the skins of these dogs were used to make boots. The Russians have hastily put together a method based on the work of the famous scientist Pavlov and his conditioned reflexes. The dogs are starved and trained to seek their food under a tracked vehicle. They are strapped with remote-controlled explosives and freed at the last minute when a German tank comes into view. In August 1942, Churchill and Harriman, Roosevelt's ambassador, fly to Moscow to meet with Stalin, who is demanding that a second front be opened in the west. Churchill makes his famous V for victory sign, but he has no other choice but to admit to Stalin that the Allies cannot help him against the Germans on the Eastern Front. Harriman promises aid and equipment, but Stalin is furious. He knows he will have to fight Hitler alone. He assigns the defense of Stalingrad to one of his most ruthless henchmen, the Ukrainian Nikita Khrushchev, who had been responsible for several of Stalin's massacres before the war. Khrushchev conveys Stalin's order not to retreat. But he is unable to stop the German advance from arriving on the outskirts of Stalingrad. By September 1942, Paulus reaches the railway line that goes to Moscow. He manages to follow it all the way to Stalingrad and takes the central train station. The Stukas prepare to destroy the city that is the pride of the Soviet Union, the greatest industrial city in the communist world, built to cater to the workers with its garden estates and its Red October and barricades factories. The German bombs kill thousands of civilians. The massive tractor factory, where the T-34 tanks were manufactured, is reduced to a sea of rubble. Yet these ruins become blockhouses and fortresses that the Germans have to capture in hand-to-hand combat. They suffer heavy casualties, which are, however, nothing compared to the Russian losses. After 4 weeks of dogged fighting, the Germans finally get to the top of the only high point in the city, Mamayev Hill. From there, they can control all of Stalingrad. On the 15th of October 1942, the Germans reach their goal, the great Russian river, the Volga. Only a thin strip of land is still held by a few Soviet combatants. General Paulus can inform Hitler that the swastika is flying over the city, which is now occupied by the 6th Army. "3,000 kilometers away, outside of Stalingrad, the Germans have been enjoying a brief respite behind the lines before returning to fight the Russians in order to eliminate their remaining pockets of resistance. The German army's flanks are defended by units from the Reich's satellite countries, Romanians, Hungarians, and Italians, who are totally unaware of the danger looming just around the corner. A few kilometers away, the Soviet troops are preparing to attack. They are ready to fight, and there are over 1 million of them. They are going to storm the enemy's weakest units in order to surround the German army occupying Stalingrad. At 7 a.m., the Soviets obliterate the enemy's lines, pounding them with the rocket launchers they call Stalin's organs. Zhukov's massive army launches the offensive. The Hungarians don't have enough ammunition. The Romanians don't have any anti-tank weapons. They, as well as the Italians, lost a massive number of men. The two Soviet armies from the north and the south meet up. Soviet filmmakers use their skills to glorify the moment. The Germans see the Soviet tanks close the circle around them. General Paulus's 6th Army is trapped inside Stalingrad. Hitler is in the Berghof, his retreat in Berchtesgaden in the Bavarian Alps, where he is informed of the Soviet offensive. His immediate reaction is to hide this news from the German people. But no army is able to reach them, and the aeroplanes of the Luftwaffe fail to deliver sufficient supplies, in spite of the promises made by the head of the Air Force, Hermann Göring. At Christmas, rations are reduced to 50 grams of bread and 12 grams of fat. Beyond the red flag is the Univermag store, where the commander of the 6th Army, General Friedrich Paulus, is entrenched. His men surrender. The day before, Hitler had promoted him to Field Marshal, thinking it would compel him to commit suicide in order to save his honor. Paulus, however, on the verge of collapse, weakened by dysentery and revolted by the absurdity of Hitler's orders, allows himself to be captured. Field Marshal Paulus is an extraordinary prize for the Soviets. Hitler can go to the devil, the German prisoners dare to mutter in the few words of Russian they know. We want to go home. We can only imagine how the people in the occupied countries must have felt. After the German defeat at Stalingrad, hope is revived. The German news broadcasts do not, of course, show any of these images. And Hitler says, "We must not use the word surrender. We must explain that our men were unable to receive supplies and that is why they were beaten. We have to use the word sacrifice."